This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and a very warm welcome to the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the absolute Zen Queen legend of a human that is Tasmin Suleiman, with episodes going out every single Thursday. This week, we're talking about supporting the trans community. This topic is important for me, not just because I am part of the LGBTQ+ community, but it is so important to support communities who are at risk. I am a trans ally and supporter, and after the news of the Supreme Court ruling that the legal definition of a woman should be based on biological sex, I thought it was important to talk about how we can show up for the trans community, and that includes the SEO industry as well. In this episode, we talk about the impact of the ruling on the community, why it's important to have these discussions, and give you practical ways that you can support and show up for the trans community. If you enjoy what me and Tasmin are doing with this podcast and you want to support us, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. There is a link in the show notes if you fancy doing that. You can give us a one-off donation and that would be fabulous. We'll give you a shout out as well. And also, word of mouth is great for a podcast. So please, the next time you listen to a podcast episode and you really enjoy it, why not find the link to that episode and share it with your friends, family, loved ones, hey, maybe even your pets. Okay, are you ready for this week's episode? Let's get cracking. Hello there, Tasmin.
Hello, Sarah.
How are we doing?
We are doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So we are recording the Tuesday after Easter. So in the UK, we had a lovely long weekend. We had Good Friday, then obviously there was the Saturday, Easter Sunday, then a bank holiday Monday. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty recharged. I didn't get loads of Easter eggs, so I'm feeling a little like, I've eaten too much chocolate. But how about you?
I had a good long weekend. We did some work in the garden, and I have an update for you and any of the listeners that are interested on my spring bulb lasagnas that were attacked by the squirrels. But I'm going to report that things are happening in that pot, albeit maybe a bit late. But yes, we have greenery and we have one tulip. I mean, it's a bit higgledy-piggledy, but it wasn't a complete failure.
Well, there you go. And how about those pesky squirrels?
Well, now that it's sprouted, now that they're not so interested. I don't know. I don't really know about I guess at winter time they want to hide all of their food. Maybe now they're not interested. Oh, now you've made me think that actually when they get hungry, they might start digging it all up again. Oh, anyway, I will report back again. But so far, so good.
I am liking these regular updates, and I imagine our podcast audience are too. But I imagine as well, we're going to get to a point where we need some photo evidence.
I will. Maybe I'll post one on LinkedIn,
I think
on
you
our
should.
LinkedIn channel. Yeah. So if anybody has not What's the word? What's the word I'm looking for?
Followed?
Subscribed? Yeah, followed us on social media. If you haven't already, do so now, and then the next few days you will see my spring bulb lasagna. Or I'll wait for a few more flowers. At the minute, it's looking a bit boring.
Instantly, what this reminds me of is they've stopped a little bit, but there was a trend on social media, and I saw this a lot on LinkedIn, where someone would post about their hobby or something that they did outside of work, and they'd be like, "What such and such can teach you about business or marketing or your well-being." So maybe
Oh,
you could no, you could do a post. What growing my spring ball lasagna has taught me about growth mindset.
yes, persevere. Um, yeah,
Yes.
I could do a perseverance post, a resilience post, or you could just have a spring bulb lasagna post. I mean, hey ho.
Hey ho, hey ho. The opportunities are endless, right?
Yeah.
So, today's episode is titled Supporting the Trans Community in the Workplace. Now, the reason this title has come about and why this episode has come about is I don't know if you have been following the news. I do know that I have a love-hate relationship with the news, especially during COVID and lockdown, because it was all bad news. It's always bad news, isn't it? Like, and it sometimes can get a bit depressing, but we shouldn't be ignorant, should we? We should keep up to date with what is going on in the world. And there was something that caught my eye that sort of rattled me a little bit and got me emotional. And I thought that I would love to address it. And we have a platform, we have an audience, we have people that listen. So I thought, yeah, we need to talk about this. So, what the news article was that the UK Supreme Court has ruled that the legal definition of a woman should be based on biological sex. Now, this poses quite a few issues to the trans community, and I just want to spend the first part of this episode discussing them. But I just want to caveat and start with a bit of a disclaimer. And I suppose I'm always nervous about talking about these kind of things, not because it's not important to, because it is. And I want to support the trans community. I want to support all LGBTQ plus communities. Hey, any minority group, I want to do my best to support. But I do know that sometimes there is a worry or fear of getting something wrong. So we shy away from having these conversations. But I thought to myself, no, Sarah, it's much better having these conversations, showing up for the trans community in this example, rather than saying nothing at all. What's your thoughts on that before we start?
So, Sarah, you and I had a conversation about this over the weekend, just before we were recording. For me, this is a topic that I know very little about, but equally am in the place of wanting to learn more. Um, Certainly not wanting to offend anyone through questions that I ask through ignorance. I mean, but it's an important conversation to have, as you said. So let's have it in a as supportive and dignified manner that we can. And I will definitely, I'd like to caveat that if throughout this podcast I ask a question, it will be because I want to learn more. Now, I may get the wording of that question wrong. For that, in advance, I'm apologizing. And equally, if there's something that I've said that needs correcting, you know where to find me. I spend half my life on LinkedIn. Find me, and I'm open to being corrected, because people are people, and I would hate to hurt anybody.
Exactly. And I think as we are being very vulnerable and open and honest right now, there's going to be lots of people who feel the same way. And yeah, there is this fear, but I always think back to, it's much better having these conversations. And if we do get something wrong, it's just about, and I'll touch on this later as well, but it's about taking accountability and saying sorry and moving on, or putting things in place so you don't make that mistake again. But this fear shouldn't stop these important conversations to be had. Yeah, it's important that me and you spend time on our podcast to have this conversation, because we have an audience. We can do our best to stand up, show up, and support the trans community, just like any other communities that need support. And it just really touched me when I saw this ruling by the UK Supreme Court, and the sort of posts that I was seeing on social media. And let's start with addressing the different issues around this ruling. So again, the ruling where the UK Supreme Court has ruled that the legal definition of a woman should be based on biological sex. So I'm just going to run through some of the issues. Tasman, if you have any questions or would you like to add, please do. But first up, this is an issue because it kind of erases trans identities. This ruling invalidates the gender identities of trans women and potentially trans men and the wider community, especially those who have transitioned and live as women. It reinforces a binary biological framework that excludes gender as a lived social and psychological identity. Another issue is legal and social exclusion. So, with this new ruling, it may actually strip trans women of legal protections and rights afforded to cis women in healthcare, services, and anti-discrimination laws. It also risks trans people being excluded from women-only spaces like shelters, bathrooms, or sports, even if they've long been socially and legally recognised in their gender. Moving on to an idea that there is this reversal of progress. Now, the Equality Act 2010 protects against discrimination based on gender reassignment. This ruling may actually weaken those protections and embolden more restrictive policies. There's also the mental health impact that it has on the community. So trans people already face higher rates of anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. And that is sadly due to rejection and discrimination that we see in society. And what is a scary place is that rulings like this can kind of give people an excuse to carry on with that discrimination and be hurtful and harmful towards a whole community. And there's also this idea that there's a human rights contradiction. Now, this decision may contradict international human rights standard, which supports the right to self-identify and be protected from discrimination based on gender identity. So obviously, this is a very nuanced topic, and there's going to be other impacts. But when I was doing my research, when I was reading up on it, those were the sort of key areas that I was seeing. So as a reminder, erasure of trans identities, legal and social exclusion, reversal of progress, which is so sad because when I was younger, I was having this conversation with Tash yesterday that when you're younger and you're learning about history and society and where we are now, you start to think, oh, actually, we're in a much healthier place. We've come on so much. And when things like this happen, where there is you take a couple of steps forward. No, sorry, you take one step forward, but then end up taking a few steps back. And it's just such a shame to see and feel that reversal of progress where everyone should feel safe, secure, and welcome. Mental health as well. This is a really, really crucial one. Like, I would hate to ever know that someone that I knew in the trans community was really struggling. And this ruling is just going to add more anxiety, more depression, because imagine waking up every day feeling that you don't belong in a body and the toll that that has. And then you learn that there are options for you. But then as you're sort of exploring those options, you've then got the other areas of being rejected by society or discrimination. And these rulings really don't help because it gives people an excuse to not act nicely, basically, and that human rights contradiction. So I want to lead on to my thoughts as well. So these are what I've researched and read up upon. But before I go into my thoughts on the matter, is there anything that you would like to add or any questions on what I've sort of brought up or raised?
So one thought I had was when you talked about the mental health um, increased risks there. Perhaps in the show notes we can add links to places like the Samaritans, that if anybody who's listening would like to access some help, then there could be a link in the show notes. But what you're saying about um, reversal, we're going backwards, we're seeing it in society in so many different facets. And the language and the boldness behind that language seems to be amplified currently. And this is, across the board. I'll use race as another example of where what progress seemed to be happening has gone backwards. And it's more than sad, it's very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And on the race issue, and I don't want to derail the conversation, but definitely on that, people are now, people that I know are having conversations that I never thought I would be hearing, that maybe we need to leave the country because it's not, in the next 10, 15 years, if things carry on the way they are, it's not going to be safe. And these aren't people, the people who are able to do that are the people who have a certain amount of affluence where they can relocate to another country. I've lived here. I mean, I'll be 58 this year, and I came when I was about 4 or 5. So I've always seen this country as home, and suddenly you feel that home is how I feel about it, may not be what other people feel when they see me. It's a really dark place to be. So that's one thought. Another thought that you said, all people have the right, certain rights, right to safety, right for respect, right
Mm.
to dignity. Um, and that's painful when you see that here, you see that worldwide. People of certain groups are being targeted more than others. We're talking about the disadvantages that may come from this. I've lived in pretty much a bubble, so I don't know anybody who is trans. The nearest I, would, in terms of my experiences, is the group in India. So there's a group in India called the Hijras, and there's a, they've been around for more than 2,000 years, so it's not a new thing. And they consider themselves as a third gender. So they're not male, they're not female, they're a third gender. But by and large, they are people who are born as male but identify as female. And their story, more or less, is that they then have to leave home and they become
Mm.
part of a Hijra community. It's not just one. There's very many, lots and lots. And each Hijra community will have a teacher or a guru that helps them in that journey. But the types of work that they get, they struggle. They're not. Life is tough for them, and just as an added element to this, they are considered. So, if there's a wedding happening in your home, you will invite hijras to bless the wedding, or they bless the baby. So they're considered powerful in that sense, and you certainly wouldn't want to be cursed by somebody. But that's the closest I've come to knowing anybody who's in part of this group.
I mean, it's such like talking about this today and hearing your experiences and your thoughts on this. It's just really sad. And I'm going to echo what you said. It's a scary place to be in because at the end of the day, everyone, no matter what community that you're part of, and yeah, this is a episode about the trans community, but we're talking about all groups of society. Everyone deserves to live freely, to be respected, and not be in fear. And to me, at the end of the day, what matters above all is someone's happiness. And as long as someone is not harming you and they're just doing what they need to do to be at peace with themselves and to live a life that is how they want to, if they're not hurting anyone, just leave them be. And time and time again, it makes me really sad because we end up targeting such small communities that don't deserve it. I mean, no one deserves to be attacked, but when you're talking about such small communities, like with the trans community, looking in the UK, they make up 1% of the population. Like why are we going after them? And it's the same with all the other communities. They make up such a small percentage. And I'm not just saying that we shouldn't go after them because they make up a small percentage. That's not my argument here. We shouldn't be going after them ever. We should just be leaving everyone alone and letting them live their true happiness and their true self. But it just doesn't make sense that you're targeting people who arguably need to be protected.
So, one of the things that I heard in the news recently was after the ruling, I believe it was the Ballantine group of gyms have announced a change in their policy on who can use the different changing rooms. And it's only a matter of time before more and more changes get rolled out, because once one person does it, then by and large everyone else follows. But I'll just repeat that we're living in some very scary, dark times, and
Mm.
across the pond, as they say, the narrative that is coming out from there um, is so bold and so brazen, um, and it just feels like where do you go? What do you do? How do you navigate it?
It's so tricky, and I'm seeing too. So, like your example with gyms having stricter policies, there's always the debate about toilets, and I've seen people share experiences of being kicked out of toilets due to this ruling. And it goes back to my earlier point that because of this ruling, it gives people an excuse to discriminate and make a community feel fearful or like they're not accepted anywhere, which is really, really sad. But also, what is another element to this is I've heard experiences of other communities being kicked out of toilets. So there was a news story of a mask presenting woman, so someone that was masculine in how they presented, even though they are biologically female because they were born as female, they got kicked out of the toilet. Or there was another example of another woman who their biological sex was female, but because they didn't fit to the norms of society of what a female looks like, they got kicked out. So it's not just the trans community that then gets affected, but loads of other communities as well. And there is this saying that true equality is universal. If one group is denied rights, everyone's equality is threatened. None of us are free until all of us are free. And I've got an example of this with the LGBTQ plus community. So you're always going to find a pattern. So when you have a group of people that have been attacked and demonized, let's say, in society, they don't stop. They don't just like think, my work done, my work is here, sorry, my work here is done, and then move on. Of course not. They then move on to other groups. So, for example, in the LGBTQ plus community, there is this attack and focus, sadly, on the trans community. And after they've got what they want, these certain people, they'll then move on to attack another group. And an example of this is J.K. Rowling. So J.K. Rowling, who authors Harry Potter, she so she has very problematic views on the trans community, and she isn't afraid to share them on her social media platforms. And what's really interesting is she started with attacking the trans community, and now she's moved on to the asexual community. And it was really easy for J.K. Rowling just to move on. And that's an example, right? Once you have given someone a platform and you've given them an excuse for their hate, they'll move on to the next one, because it's about that exposure. It's about getting that attention. And it's just really sad because, so this is just to do with the LGBTQ plus community, but we're talking wider communities as well. But like all groups are at risk here. And I'm going back to that saying that none of us are free until all of us are free. So it's important that what we're doing today happens. So being you, we have a platform and we're talking about it. We might get things wrong and we can apologize and learn from it next time. But the fact that we're addressing it and having that conversation is much better than just letting this stuff happen and not saying anything.
I'm very conscious that the things that I'm able to contribute are parallel, not exactly the same. Um, Another example that comes to my mind more recently, and this is been the last the decade or so, is the ban on the headscarf in certain countries. And France is one of those countries. And when the Olympics took place in France, and the idea is that, women who wear it are oppressed. And I'm just going to say it out that I actually admire women who can wear it. And it would be something that I aspire to. I'm not there yet. And when I was moderating at Brighton SEO, Rana, who I was moderating, she said to me, "Oh, Tasmin, I really like she called it a robe." And I said to her that I'm trying to dress more modestly. And I said, but I haven't, and I just sort of symbolized that, I haven't been able to take that step yet. And she said, one day, maybe one day. So in my experience, I do not see the headscarf as a sign of oppression, in my experience. And then and this is the basis of France banning it in schools and in certain places. But when the Olympics took place, was it last year, the year before?
Can't
I
remember.
can't remember. And I believe it was the marathon winner who wore a headscarf, and it was the last medal ceremony of the whole competition. So it was part of the closing ceremony. And lo and behold, who stands up at position number one to get the gold medal but a Muslim hijab wearing um, woman? And it just deep down you're going, yay, yay for the headscarf. But that was just, even if it was last year the world was very different. This year the world is very different, and it's scary.
But I suppose time and time again, so you said that there is an idea that people who wear headscarves are oppressed. Where does that idea come from? Does that idea come from the community and the people who are actually wearing them? Probably not. That idea has come from, I don't know, someone else who hasn't got that lived experience. And unfortunately, I see time and time rulings from people who don't have the lived experience, that don't understand, that don't know. So these people who are saying headscarves, they're oppressive. How do you know? Like, how do you know if you don't have the lived experience and you don't, and that's not your life? It's not.
Mm.
It's not your place to say. And it's probably the same with this whole UK Supreme Court ruling about, okay, the definition of a woman should be based on biological sex. Again, did you get anyone from the trans community involved in that decision? Probably not. So I think what happens is there are people who have certain viewpoints about certain things, and they lack education, they lack experience, and they just they don't know what they're talking about. And it's so sad, because that's when it leads to more discrimination and more people feeling like they don't belong in a society, when that's not what we should be doing. We should be learning from each other. We should be able to live together and respect each other. That is a much better place to be in, rather than, I don't know, putting people against each other. And I mean, I've got my own thoughts on the media and their own agenda. And I think, unfortunately, most is clickbait, and they're going to do stuff that's going to drive people to buy those magazines or click or read. But sadly, the people who are reporting on these matters, or the people that are putting different rules in place or deciding what to ban or what is oppressive and what is progressive, just don't have the experience.
No, no. There's a line in the Quran that says, "I created amongst you." So, I mean, it's not word for word like this, but the gist of it is, I created within you tribes, different tribes, so that you can understand each other. So it didn't say you have to like each other or completely agree, but you can understand each other. And when the word tribes in the scenario that we're talking about are exactly what, there'll be some who wear a headscarf and there will be some who identify in a certain way. Remember, each person is a human, and each person has
Yeah.
feelings and dreams and wishes and can be hurt, and they all deserve to be respected. And if you start from that point, then try and understand the rest. But you can't understand without that, then all you're doing is tolerating. And tolerating and accepting are two different things.
I've never thought about it like that. And yeah, it shouldn't be a case of tolerating. It should be a case of accepting. And I remind myself time and time again that there are things that I do and that I believe that aren't necessarily going to be the same as someone else. Or there might be some people that I come across that have their own beliefs or their own way of doing things, and that isn't my way. But there is no wrong or right way. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are all different. And to make a stupid sort of example here, but I think it's a good way of kind of thinking about it. But like, um, Tash will brush her teeth with warm water. I don't understand this, right? I don't understand why she brushes her teeth with warm water. And when we first started living together, I noticed it a couple of times when we brushed our teeth together. She'd go for the hot water, and it took me a couple of times for me to sort of ask the question and be like, oh, what's this about? Like, why do you do that? And she told me that she's got sensitive teeth and she finds warm water more tolerable than cold water. So that's why she washes her teeth with warm water. And I sort of, like, at first I thought it was a bit odd, but I was like, Sarah, do not judge. Everyone can brush their teeth how they want to. If Tash decides to brush her teeth with warm water, does it really have an effect on me? No. Does it hurt me in any way? No. Does it give her what she needs? Is she respecting her body in a way that she needs to? Of course she is. Have I banned no one is allowed to brush their teeth with warm water in this household? Of course not. Now, I know that that might sound like a silly sort of comparison, but hopefully it gets people thinking a bit more that it's about that, isn't it? Really, as an example.
Gosh, I've never brushed my teeth with anyone. But
Jeez.
using a different example, if you look at the two of us, on the surface of it, we're very different people. Very, very different people in terms of faith, in terms of our sexual orientation. Is that the right phrase to use? Yeah. Okay.
It
Good.
is. It is.
Um,
Yeah.
age. Our families look very different. I'm a granny, and but
I'm a dog mum.
I don't know. I don't do pets. I don't. I've never really done pets. We had a fish tank once, so we're very different. But you and I, for 3 years, have created podcast episodes. We've had discussions. Some of those discussions have been quite deep, and we've listened to each other's points of view. Even this is listening, it was your idea to have this episode. We've had conversations, but they've always been based on respect, on dignity, on wanting to understand each other's point of view. When I tell you about my thoughts on what's happening in the world, on the stance of the amount of oppression that is happening, we've managed very successfully to have a relationship, even though we are so different. And why? I'm not trying to change you into more of me. You're not trying to change me into
No.
more of you. There's never been that point of view.
And I definitely don't feel, going back to your earlier point, I don't feel like I'm tolerating
No,
your way of living, just like you're not tolerating my way. But actually, I feel more enriched actually by having friendships, having relationships with people that are very different to me, because I think I think this is a major point and a major issue, and we do need to go into a short break. But this is a big topic to discuss.
well, it hardly seems
But
worth it now. We've just railed right
I
through
think
the break.
we will have a break. We'll just have a longer episode. But we will take a short break because this is a big topic, meaty subject. So we do need to let listeners digest and just have a think about what we've spoke about before. But I just want to end with, I always think that these kind of things happen. Discrimination happens. People aren't kind to other people that are different to them because they lack experience and education, and they're just so bubbled. They live in their own little bubble, their own little community. And of course, if you live like that and you're blinkered and you only surround yourself with those kind of people, of course you're not going to understand, or you're not going to be as open to other communities. But I just urge people, like, my life is so much more enriched when I've gone out and made friends that are so different from me, that have different belief systems, that are from different cultures, because then I get to learn, and I get to learn that there is no right way of living your life. There's lots of different ways. We just need to figure out a way of it all coming together nicely.
That's a good place to have a break.
Shall we take a short
Yes.
break? Okie dokie. Join us for part two. So, what we're going to do in part two is, because you might think, okay, what does this topic have to do with SEO? there's a lot that it has to do with SEO, because we're going to talk about how we can show up and support our trans brothers and sisters when we're at work. So we're going to give you some strategies that you can implement and some things that you can think about so we can support the trans community better. Does that sound good,
Sounds
Tasman?
good. Hi, Tasman here. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Be more visible, earn more, but also take care of your well-being and have work-life harmony? Well, I can help you because I'm offering you a free 30-minute consultancy call. Together, we can go through where you want to be and how to get there. Simply click in the link on the link in the show notes, fill in a form, and I'll get back to you.
Sarah here, just quickly popping on to let you know about how you can support the podcast, how you can support me and Tasman. So first things first, we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means you can give us a one-off donation. Thank you to everyone who has done that already. If you fancy doing that, the link is in the show notes and we'd be very much appreciative. And another way is help us spread the word. Get more people to know about the podcast. Tell your colleagues, friends, loved ones, hey, even your pets. Next time you're listening to an episode and you think someone would really love it, find the link and why not share it with them? Okay, we are back for part 2. Did you enjoy that short siesta I'm going with?
Siesta. Yeah, little nap. I had a drink of my water. Now, I already started my randomness with my spring bulb lasagna, so I'm going to do another little random point, and then we can get into the conversation. If you put chia seeds in water with a slice of lemon and some Himalayan salt, and make a big jug of it, sort of like a litre of water with a tablespoon of chia seeds, and let them soak. They're very good for your hydration, everybody.
Oh, there you
So
go.
as it's coming, yeah, it's getting warmer and warmer. Remember, Auntie Taz said chia seeds and water with some lemon and salt.
I don't have any chia seeds in the cupboard, so I'll make sure that on our next Tesco shop we'll have some. But
Yeah,
that's good. Hydration is key.
yeah,
So,
and fiber.
and, and fiber. So, in the first part, we were talking about the recent UK Supreme Court ruling that says that the legal definition of a woman should be based on biological sex. And we sort of talked about how this is an issue for the trans community. And I've given some examples of that. And then me and Tasman sort of went into our own thoughts and we developed on other sort of groups and communities that end up getting discriminated against. So it was quite a big topic to discuss. But with every episode, we always like to give our listeners practical strategies and tips that they can implement. So we are talking about the trans community and how we can support them, because obviously with rulings like this, it ends up being it doesn't make it easier for that said community, which is sad. It's really, really sad. But there are things as allies. So Tasman, would you say that you are a LGBTQ plus trans ally?
I'm a human ally. I
Human
think
ally.
is that a term? I'm a
Should
human
be.
ally.
Should be. Because, yeah, your point earlier, we're all humans. So that's what it should go down to. But yes, so I've got some ways that you can start implementing if after listening to this episode, or maybe you've been thinking about this before, of you really want to support the trans community, but you just don't really know how to. So we're going to give you lots of ways that you can do that. Tasman, are you ready for me to get started?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so be respectful of pronouns. So there needs to be a sort of normalization of people saying what their pronouns are. So whether they are he, him, she, her, they, them, whatever someone's pronouns are, respect them. So whenever that comes up and you're in a conversation where someone says what their pronouns are, make sure that you respect these. You could go a step further in normalizing this, and maybe you could start that conversation. So the next time that you're at Brighton SEO or a conference or at work, you could say, "Hi, my name is Sarah. My pronouns are she, her." So, yes, Tasman?
Um, I'm putting. I know people can't see it, but I'm putting my hand up, saying me, me, me. But at Brighton this time, they even had stickers, didn't they? That you could put on your badge, which were great.
Yes.
They even had stickers for yes, I want to chat, or all sorts of things. But definitely pronouns were in.
I have got a little section on industry events. So, those that run events, I have got examples, and stickers are a great example. Brighton SEO are a great example of being inclusive, which is always lovely. Now, second thing, if you make a mistake, apologize and move on. Don't make it about your guilt. Don't make it about you. Oh, I'm a terrible person. I got your pronouns wrong. I'm really sorry. Don't do that. So I've been in situations where I have got someone's pronouns wrong or I have misgendered them. How I've dealt with the situation, and after speaking with friends in the community, the best way of addressing it is just to apologize, correct yourself, and move on. Move on. Don't make it this big thing, because that's not going to be helpful for anyone. It's not going to be helpful for you. It's not going to be helpful for the person that you've misgendered. It is important to address your mistake, but don't sit on it. Don't make it all about your guilt. And if you're new to this, you're going to make mistakes. So that's okay. And we make mistakes. We're humans, but just correct yourself, apologize, and move on. The next one's a little bit trickier. So, and it may take you some time to get comfortable with this, but please try and start to challenge transphobia, even when it's uncomfortable. So, the next time you're at a conference, or you're in the workplace, or there's an email thread going between your clients or whatever, and you see some transphobia, challenge it. Just address it, highlight it, and again, move on. Now, this one's a bit trickier because not everyone's going to feel comfortable. And I know for one that sometimes conflict or challenging something can feel a little bit uneasy. But the more times that you do something, the better you are going to get at it. And always remember, you can't control someone else's response. So as long as you've tried your best to challenge that transphobia, whatever's happened, and if that person then, hopefully in an ideal situation, that person would be like, "Thank you for bringing my attention to it. I've now learned and I won't do that again." That's the ideal situation. But there may be times where people get defensive and they act in a way that you don't want. So just be prepared for that, and remember, you can always walk away and take yourself out of that situation. Have a process in place to handle discrimination. So if you run your own agency, if you own your own company, or if you're part of putting together policies or certain procedures or how things are run in a company, make it super clear, easy, and super clear and easy for someone to come forward with a complaint, or if they want to address discrimination. So make sure that is crystal clear and it is a process that is easy to follow. When you are speaking with someone who is trans from the community, and you're asking questions, you're curious because you want to find out more, great. But make sure you are listening. Yeah. Try and not talk over that person, because remember, it's their experience that you want to listen to. It's their experience that you're wanting to learn more about. So create a safe, respectful space for people to have a conversation with you. And this leads me on to don't expect that one trans person or that one trans community at work to organize every inclusivity event, or don't expect that one trans person or the trans community to always educate you on a subject. Yeah. This is, you hear this time and time again, and it's frustrating because, of course, yes, you could argue it's great that company is wanting to do more. They want to organize inclusive events, or they want people to be educated. Don't always put that pressure on that person in the community. You can, of course, ask their opinion and run things by them, but it's not just on them. This needs to be a group effort. This needs to be a brand, a community, a business effort together. So don't get lazy. Yeah. Approach an all together kind of approach. You can also be proactive. So, if ever you're in a position of hiring or you're looking for freelancers to work with, how can you support, hire, promote trans professionals? Yeah. So be mindful of that. So if you're in a place where you get to do some good and you get to hire people from the trans community, do your research. You could go a step further and feature and uplift trans voices in your content campaigns or any campaigns that you're doing. Again, reviewing policies or anything to do with the company, are they inclusive? Now, this shouldn't just happen when it is Pride, for example. This needs to be all year round. You can't just show up because it's Pride Month, or you can't just show up because it's National Transgender Awareness Day. This has to happen all the time. Don't be tokenistic about it. We've already talked about Brighton SEO and their use of stickers. That's a great way of making people feel safe and secure, because if you've got a lanyard and you've got your pronoun sticker, hopefully you then don't have to have those awkward conversations of, oh, you've misgendered me, or those aren't my pronouns. So if you are ever in a situation where you are organizing a gathering of people, a conference, whatever it is, make sure it's super easy to support in those ways. Look for sort of pronoun stickers. Look into non-gendered bathrooms, or make sure that there is a zero tolerance discrimination policy in place. Again, make it crystal clear how someone can raise an issue. Normalize inclusion in your event. So any way that you can show up for the trans community, do it. And then my last point is, think about the language that you're using. So, whenever you are writing content for your different campaigns, or when you're writing emails, or whatever content that you are writing, use gender neutral language to make it inclusive. Don't default to binary assumptions. Yeah, like have a think about how you can show up and use gender neutral language to support the community. So yeah, those are just some quick. Obviously, there's lots more that you can do, but of course, we are rapidly running out of time. But those are my top things that you can easily start implementing straight away. Tasman, thoughts?
So a lot of all of those points are what can somebody, an organization, a conference, all of that do to help. Speaking as somebody on the other side of it, on a different, in a different minority, what's really helped me is have a circle of people that I feel protected by. And I'll use you and Jack. So, though we've never formally said anything, um, I know that when I'm at Brighton SEO, that I'm not saying I've ever been targeted for my faith. That's absolutely not the case, but I feel like you're my allies there. So build a circle. I know this is more, someone from the trans community doing the proactiveness, but speaking as somebody from a minority community, that's really helped me having you there, having Jack there, and it just makes me feel comforted.
That's lovely to hear because, of course, it's great to hear that you do feel supported and you've got that network
Mm.
and humble that you feel safe with me. So that's good. And of course, I'm always going to be here for you, Tasmin. I'm going to support you. But yeah, it's really important to find communities, find people that you know are going to have your back and who are going to support you and stand up for you, because in a world where it's getting harder and harder to just exist in a way that you want to, that feels right for you without feeling fearful, it is so important to find your people, find your communities, find your friends. Like, yeah, that is possibly the most important, isn't it?
Yeah, and just we just hope things get better.
Yes, and the way that things do get better is by having these conversations, right? That is a start. I'm not saying that this one episode is going to fix all the world's problems. I mean, I wish we had that power because that would be lovely. But I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. It's so important just to start having these conversations. And fingers crossed, you never know. The fact that we have done this episode today, it might inspire other people, other listeners, other communities, other people that have a platform or have an audience. And it doesn't even have to be a humongous audience, whatever audience you have. Let's start having a conversation. And again, um you said earlier, oh, I've put my hand up but you can't see. I'm going to do another visual thing. But while we were recording this episode, I did have my Stand for Stonewall t-shirt on.
Oh,
And Stonewall is a fabulous charity in the UK that supports the LGBTQ plus community. And yeah, so yes, like I just hope that this conversation has just, well, a couple of things. I just hope that this conversation, this episode, gives some support or some encouragement or some safety blanket for the trans community, but other communities as well. Me and Tasmin, we are human first, aren't we? I love that
yeah.
concept. We are
Yeah. Human allies.
human allies who, yeah. And if there is a topic or conversation that you want to talk about, bring it to us. We have a platform and we'd love to do it because we need to have these conversations. And yeah, hopefully we've supported the trans community and other communities. Hopefully it's got you thinking about certain things, or maybe it's got you inspired to do certain stuff of how you can support the community. But yeah, I think I started this episode a little bit nervous because of getting stuff wrong or not saying things in the right way. But actually, coming to the end of this podcast, I'm so glad we did. And I hope you're feeling the same way too, Tasmin.
I think the conversation went in different angles, and underpinning it all is this wish and prayer and desire for people to feel that they have community, that they have a space, they have dignity, they have the right to their own identity, and all of this is really, really important.
Exactly. And we should also say that in the show notes, what I'll do is I'll put a mixture of different resources. So I'll put resources there for the trans community. So, of course, we've talked about some very hard hitting stuff. And yeah, so if anyone is struggling or if anyone needs help, of like we're not doctors, we're not trained in that area, but we will find things that we can link to in our show notes. And also those that want to learn more or like want to education, right? The best way that you can start supporting a community is by educating and understanding more. So I'll find some links so people can do that. So basically just go and head to the show notes because there'll be lots of different resources in there to help you.
Yeah, and on the mental health front, if you are struggling in any which way, and this is for everyone, for whatever is going on in your life, please access the GP, your GP first, and then that path will then open up for you. So yeah, just a reminder that the GP is there to help you.
Lovely. Right. Tasmin, thank you so much for this episode.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that step because, yesterday when you said I've planned my episode and I clicked on the link, it's not what I was expecting because it's not our usual topic. So, yeah, well done for taking that step.
Let's wrap up because we've gone over time. But I think we were always going to go over time because we've only just scratched the surface, really, haven't we? But I feel like we've covered as much as we can right now. So thank you to our listeners for tuning in again. And yeah, if you like what me and Tasmin are doing, reminder of how you can support us. So if you're not already, wherever you're listening to this podcast, make sure that you are following us. You could also give us a review as that helps the algorithms. And word of mouth is the best way to spread a podcast. So please, please, please share this podcast with your friends, family, colleagues, even your pets. So if after listening to this episode or whatever episode and you think, crikey, this person needs to listen to this, then share this episode with them. Right, Tasmin, shall we say goodbye until next time and take care of yourselves?
Goodbye until next time and take care of yourselves.